center ice. It's there. Power leaves it. Peterka's got a lane. Scores! What a dart!
This is JJ Peterka. He just got moved from Buffalo to Utah after he basically just didn't want to be there anymore. Times are tough for the Sabres, but for the Mammoth, this is the biggest trade in their franchise's history. A 23-year-old diamond in the rough, high-octane #1 scoring winner that you acquired for a couple around the edges pieces. Utah has built one of the most exciting top 6 units in hockey, but is it actually enough to take them into contention status? So, who is JJ Peterka? Well, basically, there's 6 NHL skaters from Germany. 2 of them are okay, 4 of them are great players. JJ Peterka is one of the 4. A 6-foot, 189-pound winger whose skating might be his best trait. He's got the pop gene. Not like Jay Beebs or anything, but he can pop from a standstill to game speed almost instantly. It's a factor that's not just genetics, which he absolutely has, but it also requires good knee bend, good back posture. He gets both his feet off the ground. He doesn't look like PK Subban in an off-season training video, and he keeps a running formation long enough before starting his stride. He created a lot of opportunities for Buffalo this season through this by becoming an immediate threat offensively up the wing. Since his Germany days, scouts knew how good he was at making a quick read and jumping up the ice early to get in position for a rush opportunity. For Buffalo, it was a real spark of offense as he was the only guy who could do it at this level, which is a large part of why he had nearly 70 points this season, 3rd among players from the 2020 draft class. And he was a 2nd-round pick. This is where Utah's system could lead to a lot of good opportunities for Peterka, because Utah's system was maybe the most exciting in hockey this year. Why doesn't anyone talk about it? I don't know, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because we got to stay on topic of skating, where Peterka has a tendency to glide or float at times. Sometimes with a player, that's a lack of buy-in. Sometimes it's about keeping his positioning on the ice, and sometimes it's just a game of values. What do you value more? Peterka's acceleration and agility means he can bolt out of the zone, and if he cheats a bit, he can get a clear-cut scoring chance out of basically nothing. Look how quickly this scramble turns into a Buffalo advantage after Peterka gets up to speed, and he makes a difficult pass, which, was called offside. Cheers, ref. On the flip side of that, for Peterka, Game 7 of the Cup Finals, you're paying this guy nearly $8 million a season, and he can look like a pylon at the worst of times. That's a give and take of working with a guy like JJ Peterka and comparing what he brings offensively versus defensively. Because even offensively, he's a little bit one-dimensional. Within the world of the cycle game, he doesn't have great stats, but he buzzed around the offensive zone in Buffalo's 2-3 system, darting towards open space and jumping on opportunities. It's like he has a switch in his brain sometimes, and when he's on, he's on. The fact they play a 2-3 system works to Peterka's advantage, creating these mini rush opportunities that a dynamic player like Peterka takes full advantage of. So his offensive game is built on the rush, but the forecheck involvement is pretty minimal. I would classify him as a finesse first player. While it's not like he's unable to fight through contact, the forechecking game still leaves a lot to be desired, and I wouldn't say he's anywhere close to a Mitch Marner cerebral forechecker that creates a lot of counterplay. It's like once the puck is on the other team's stick, he just doesn't feel exceptional at all. That's probably the biggest knock on his game, or maybe the defensive play is, but the rush offense is actually exceptional. And Utah is an unbelievable rush-based team. Why doesn't anyone talk about it? Well, I'm going to talk about it right now. JJ Peterka and Utah is a kind of combination that stats nerds are getting super fired up about right now. And I'm personally pissed that not everyone in the world cares about how crazy this fit is. I couldn't believe it when checking earlier this season, but Utah was far and away the most consistent team at entering the offensive zone with possession this season. A part of me thinks it's a huge shame they didn't make the playoffs this year, because in their inaugural season, they played some of the most fun hockey in the league, led by, largely, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Dylan Genther on the first line, where I could be wrong, but I think Peterka is going to force his way onto it. Alternatively, you put Peterka on the second line, and then you have 2 lines of ridiculous high-octane offense. Now, talking about systems, I think that might have worked against Peterka's favor in Buffalo defensively. They played a more advanced hybrid defensive structure where there was more potential for greatness, but there was also more potential for mistakes if there's a miscue. Peterka was really not helped here. I think Utah's box +1 in the defensive end, especially considering all the tricks they have to create offense from their own end, like flipping the puck out and creating a little race to get it in the neutral zone, it's going to lend itself to some pretty crazy highlights. So Utah might be the kings of rush offense, but Buffalo was no slouch either, to be fair. They're pretty dangerous off the rush and frequently sent Byram or Dahlin up the wall to help create looks. 2 extremely talented offensive defensemen. That isn't going to be there in Utah. It's not all sunshine and daisies is what I'm getting at here. You're giving up one situation for another one. Another way of looking at it is that Buffalo, through all of their aids we heard about this year and how it feels like every time a player gets drafted to Buffalo, they get descended into Hades' shade of that underworld where their souls are instantly blackened and shit. It's like they had 2 fewer wins in Utah this year. Basically, Peterka is joining the best fit in the league for him, but he's leaving behind what was already a pretty strong fit for him, at least offensively. Okay, so he gets points off the rush, but what does that actually look like? Well, it's goals first, especially early in his career when he put up a Michael Grabner-ass stat line last season. He's got a pretty lethal wrist shot that can beat a goalie clean, and just like German buddy Leon Draisaitl, how do you do, same amount of cups, he could rip a one-knee, one-timer on the power play pretty consistently. 14 of his 27 goals this year were classified as a one-timer by Sport Contract. This opens up the chance for Utah to really tinker with their power play if needed, which to me is kind of nuts. They already had the 10th best power play in hockey. You probably don't need to move Keller off that wall, so finding Peterka a spot might be tough. Run 2 units, run 5 forwards. I don't know. Good problem to have though. The goal scoring is probably the most consistent part of Peterka's game, and I think it's going to be there his whole career. He's got a lethal shot and it creates constant highlights for him. I can already envision Peterka's name in the rafters one day. Maybe that's crazy. Sorry guys. I got ahead of myself there. Okay, well, JJ is considered more of a goal scoring guy, but this season his assists went up a lot, so he's probably pretty developed here, right? Okay, so here's the statistical anomaly portion that's a little bit confusing. Buckle in and please subscribe because I had to go back to middle school to learn my percentages again. It's not fun sitting in a class with kids. It's weird as hell. I hated it. Okay, on ice shooting percentage. The stat that shows how often shots from your team go in, only when you're on the ice. Your team got 10 shots while you were on the ice. 2 of them were goals. That's a 20% shooting percentage. Nice. A great player elevates his teammates and might hit 12% at even strength across the season. Hey, that's pretty good. If everyone always shot 12%, that means goalies have a 880 save percentage when you're on the ice at 5v5. In the NHL this season, at 5v5, the NHL average save percentage was 911, aka the average player had an on-ice shooting percentage of 8.9%. Kucherov was at 12% this year. Damn, that's good. That's probably why he led the league in scoring, to be fair. JJ Peterka was at 14.23%, which is the highest figure ever recorded for this stat. Damn. I'm not saying he got lucky all year, but like, are we really saying he's the most efficient play driver in modern hockey? This stat can only be counted back to 2007, so who knows? Maybe Punch Broadbent went on a nasty PDO bender for the Montreal Maroons, but we'll never know. What we do know, however, is that JJ Peterka is an extremely efficient playmaker. That part is no joke. At 5v5, he's had about as many primary shot assists as a Nils Höglander or Juraj Slavkovsky, but Peterka's value comes from these consistent high-danger passing opportunities. It's a big reason to why his giveaway ratio is so high if you put stock into that. He's not a primary facilitator, but he tries to find crazy looks pretty often. Prioritizing high-danger opportunities may be the same way Martin Necas or Alexei Protas does. This, in part, I think can explain his ridiculous on-ice shooting percentage he had all year. I talk about this stat a lot because it's fundamentally figuring out how lucky you are and how much your points matter when looking at it. If you're mucking around on Buffalo all year, you're probably not the most efficient scorer of all time, which is what this stat indicates. So what can we take from this? What does it mean? Should I care? Where did Amelia Earhart land? I can't answer all those questions for you, but I do know that 1. JJ Peterka's 68 points this season probably does not happen next season without improving his all-around offensive game with more playmaking and scoring reps. As it is, he just doesn't make enough dangerous passes in the offensive zone or shoot enough pucks to put up elite first-line numbers every year. 2. Peterka is an extremely efficient player who seems to collect a lot of his points from high-danger areas and in high-danger situations. The kind of situations I can envision Utah being in a lot next year, especially with their high-octane game, prioritizing rush offense, and the litany of talent on the team. Damn. I think another way we could see Peterka improve next season, however, is actually his cycle game and his in-zone playmaking. I think we saw the instincts this year, and maybe this is a route to producing a lot. Working with some highly skilled talent and spending 5 years with them, the potential to gain some long-term chemistry in the ozone could counteract some natural decline in shooting percentage. JJ Peterka is one of the most exciting young players in hockey, and his ceiling keeps changing the more time he spends in the NHL. His scoring took a jump this year to first-line caliber, but he's going to have to do what he does more if he wants to put up these numbers every season. I get the sense that Peterka is an extremely hard worker, however, and his desire to play in Utah feels pretty cool. It's a brand new franchise, and we're seeing how maybe some other athletes don't like Utah across other sports. The fact the Mammoth are picking up a highlight reel machine who can immediately make an impact is, at the very least, good for the sport. The West is shaping up to be a bloodbath next season, and I don't think there are 8 teams objectively better than Utah in their conference. Peterka doesn't solve any issues, but it makes their rush game so good that, I don't know, we maybe have never seen a squad built like this before. The first season as a franchise with a full logo, real name, and a nice arena, I think JJ Peterka joining is only fitting. We get to see what this new era looks like for this franchise in October, and I cannot wait.